Welcome back, everybody. Let's just get into it.
You've interviewed a lot of homeless people. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like it's only going to get bigger and worse? Or do you think there's any hope for that ever healing in America?
Dude, it seems like it's getting worse every day. Dude, because rents are getting out of control. I mean, I know it just from the market in Milwaukee. It used to get, like in the hood of Milwaukee, you could get a 2-bedroom for $600, $650. Now that's like, there's people trying to charge $1,100, $1,150, and that's really high for that market.
That's how it is in Buffalo too.
And it's getting out of control. There's people that, I just saw a statistic, 22% of Americans put every single dollar of their paycheck into rent.
Oh.
It's supposed to be 30% of your income goes into rent. That's like the healthy standard of whether you'd rent to somebody or not. So between that, between the drug issues, between the mental health issues, I think it's only going to get worse. And I am rooting for a champion that can think of innovative ideas to tackle.
You know, this is something that really bothers me. And I know bothers a lot of people out there because the worry isn't exactly voiced on mainstream media, nor is it voiced by our politicians or anybody with any power. Really, homelessness really only has seemed to increase over my lifetime in America. And the thing is, it's like the guy said, I think it's just going to get worse because I don't see a way that it gets any better at this point. Because homelessness is tied to many things. Okay, you're talking about the cost of housing, the cost of rent, incomes being low and not meeting the cost of living, inflation, mental illness, addiction, family crisis. There's a myriad of reasons why people become homeless. But in America especially, it seems to be a very profound and unique problem. I mean, if you've traveled anywhere else in the world, you really don't see the same kind of homelessness that you do in America. Yeah, listen, if it's a war-torn country, that's one thing. We understand. But this is supposed to be a first world country. We're supposed to be a compassionate country. We're supposed to be a country that takes care of our own. But at the same time, it definitely doesn't feel that way. And I don't think anyone would think that America is a country that's good at taking care of its own citizens. It's a country that the standard of living has continuously been in a decline. But as far as homelessness goes, I mean, most of us have seen it at this point and seen how it's gotten worse. And like I said, there doesn't seem to be any real serious approach to actually do anything about it. Of course, you have churches out there, you have good citizens who are going out there and trying to feed the needy, feed the homeless, try to do what they can, even if it's just sitting down, giving them a meal and having like a pray with them. But at the same time, you do see other communities where there are buildings that they're going to try to turn them into, rehabilitation areas or halfway homes, or places for battered spouses. And the community just says, no, not in my neighborhood. And these are often the same communities. Like there's this one, Summit Community Center in San Jose, California. California, very Democrat, very liberal, always talk about taking care of people. But at the same time, California has a crazy homelessness rate. And in this video, you see these community members come up and really they don't want this in their neighborhood. I mean, this isn't just something that's unique to this community, obviously. But let's have a look real quick.
You're elected officials, you need to listen to us.
This motel conversion is part of a broader effort to provide safe, stable, and supportive housing for our most vulnerable neighbors. Specifically at the Bristol Hotel, we plan to utilize this housing specifically for single mothers and their children, or single women age 60 and older.
If the idea here is for mothers with children, which just sounds lovely, but as a mom with little kids, is this temporary housing because you're changing schools, or is it really housing? And if it's housing, are they paying rent? Are they in and out at certain hours?
Do they have jobs?
Do they have jobs? Do they have to have a job? Are they contributing to the rent?
Yes, so this is temporary shelter. That'll be a transition. Temporary shelter meaning if they don't pay rent, we transition them into permanent housing from this site.
What time frame?
You make this sound like a panacea, that everything is just going to be hunky-dory. Let me tell you how many drugged out moms I've met with kids who have custody of their kids.
Put it in your backyard.
I live in downtown and I have 3 of them.
Take the whole thing.
What is the most effective way for us to reject this proposal?
You know, this is one of the things about the kind of the fear and paranoia that we have in America when it comes to homeless or anybody. We're a paranoid culture. We don't trust our neighbors. And to have a building repurposed so it can actually take care of either homeless people or people who are in transition, it's something that scares them. Oh, I don't know. I got to protect my family. I understand this concern, but this is one of the problems with America losing its very sense of community, is that there's no actual drive to fix the community or help people out. The entire problem is ignored and pushed to the side. Of course, it's going to be exacerbated. Of course, it's going to be worse. I think the same fail-safes, personally, individually, in people's lives that we have in other cultures and other countries, we just seem to do away with in our country, in our culture. The first one, of course, is just family. Family throughout the world is really the biggest barrier that people have between them and homelessness. People are always able to fall back and rely on family or even friends. People take care of each other. If you spend enough time in other international communities outside of America, you'll notice that people do tend to look out for each other in a way that kind of makes Americans feel uncomfortable for the most part, if you're not used to it. People actually ask you, hey, what's going on with your life? How are you? More than just, hey, how you doing? Nah, I'm good. And then you carry on with your day. And like I said, in a lot of other cultures, you just don't see the same level of homelessness because of that. And of course, there's always going to be social programs to help people out, but those are more scarce in the world as well. So really what it comes down to is the community's approach to making sure that homelessness isn't an issue like it is in the States. But of course, mental illness is another thing. Mental illness is kind of something that's a huge problem in the States. And of course, mental illness always being tied with addiction. We are a country that is just in a constant battle with addiction, and it doesn't really seem to be taken seriously. There's just the villainizing, the addicts, villainizing homeless people, seeing them as reprobates, seeing them as, destitute scum, really. And you have to protect yourself, protect your community, and not realize that they are themselves part of the community that have slipped through the cracks and are dealing with something very serious. And I think it's incumbent on Americans to really look out for these people. I think shows like Intervention have actually done great damage by turning addiction into spectacle, turning it into entertainment. Well, that's not me, I'm not that bad. But the thing is, you never know where you're going to end up. And most people who find themselves as addicts on the street, they didn't think that they were going to get there one day. It can happen to everyone. So have a little bit of compassion and actually do something if you can. I hate to see communities like this that are like saying no to the rehabilitation center because, these are all probably good people. They're people who probably espouse a kind of morality that, they say, yeah, we want to help them out. We don't want homelessness, because I don't think anybody really wants homelessness in the streets. No one likes the scenes of Kensington and Philadelphia. But when it comes time to actually make the change, and it can actually touch our lives, most people are just kind of have a kind of cowardice when it comes to actually taking action to deal with such matters such as homelessness in the United States. Because like I said, it doesn't look like the government's going to do anything about it. It hasn't done anything about it. There's no signs that it ever will. It's going to get worse. Like I said, with the cost of living and everything exploding, and inflation exploding, and the cost of housing exploding, and the social benefits, rental assistance, food assistance, with those possibly, being done away with, of course, I think this puts people in the position where we're going to see many people, even maybe people that we know, people that you know in your life, who are going to struggle with housing, who might find themselves in a position of homelessness. And the real question is, when that happens, what are you willing to do? Are you going to help your friend? Because what happens when your friend says, I can't afford my apartment anymore, I'm just going to live in my van. I'm just going to live in my car. At that point, what do you do? Because I feel like in America, we actually normalize living in a car, living in a van, living in a tent, so much so now that we actually, well, at least you'll be able to save some money, get up on your feet. That's not the kind of moral encouragement and support that people actually need. It's just not enough. It doesn't really do anything. If anything, it's you shirking responsibility at a time where a friend or family member is actually in crisis, and it's normal to do so. In our country, in our culture, there's no actual expectation to help prevent or protect someone from going into homelessness. And once you are labeled as homeless, you will be treated differently. You do become a second-class citizen. Your concerns aren't really important because you're not a producer for our system anymore. So I think it's a real shame. But like I said, if you find anyone out there in your life, in your social circle, who are struggling with these things, you should definitely do what you can to help. Anything other than just saying, well, you'll be able to save some money, being in a tent. Now I'm going to go live my life. Because there are certain times in life where you have to kind of step aside from what you're doing and actually help people out. And I think we're all hypocrites, even myself, when it comes to these kind of matters. And they can cause regret, but it doesn't mean that we just close ourselves off to it. But I don't know. That's all I got. Hey everyone, if you're still here, thanks for the support. Like and subscribe. Think about becoming a member. Any comments, any ideas, put them down in the comment section. But I hope you guys have a great day.